Hello, I'm Davia Chambers and this is Let's Talk Tobago. Gunfire, smoke, two opposing sides, all signs of warfare, and Fort King George is no stranger to it. Don't let the peaceful views of the Atlantic Ocean and Scarborough fool you. Fort King George was a war zone. But before 1804, when it was finally settled, this place was known as Fort Castries, Fort Republique, and Fort Liberté, to name a few. But it's a reflection of the number of times this place changed hands. We'll tell you all about it. But first, a look at some of our stories this week. Shelf space in Panama. Tobago products now have access to the Central American market. A survey to ease all traffic woes, and we'll tell you who walked away the winners of this year's goat and crab races. These stories and more right after the break. This is Let's Talk Tobago, and today we're coming to you from Fort King George, named after King George III. This fort is positioned strategically on a hill with views of Scarborough, the windward areas, and the south coast of the island. It was built to detect intruders, protect the capital, and if under attack, destroy the enemy. But today it's but a tranquil park for families, history enthusiasts, and wedding memories. But let's take a break from here to journey to Panama. That country is about to become one of this island's newest trading partners thanks to what's known as a partial scope trade agreement. Omadara Mills explains.
It looks just like a regular white flour, but it's not wheat. It's actually cassava, which you can use to make these products. Now Tobago's producers aren't just trying a thing, as they say. They're actually very good at this, which is why this high-quality cassava flour has been chosen as one of the goods this island will export to Panama, a country with a diverse cuisine that's similar to ours. Items such as savory sauces, bay leaf powder, and other condiments and food items are also attractive to the Panamanian market. So the partial scope trade agreement is seen as another avenue for local manufacturers.
I think it's an opportunity for processors to be able to think about expanding their markets outside of Tobago and outside of Trinidad and Tobago and to the Latin American countries.
But the bilateral trade agreement will profit many other Tobagonians.
You're not only benefiting your company, but the persons who you supply raw material, who supply you with raw material, and the persons who they employ, the person who you will have to employ. So it's not just in isolation of a processor. It can really have a rippling effect throughout Tobago and bring some valuable economic returns to Tobago as well.
According to the Division of Finance and Enterprise Development, benefits include enhanced development and expanded trade possibilities, strengthen cooperation activities, and develop mechanisms that will facilitate further investment. But in order for local businesses to attain the benefits, there are international standards that they must meet. They include good manufacturing practices. And for that, the Tobago Agro-Processors Association is seeking to get its members up to scratch.
We have made linkages with institutions like Chemistry, Food and Drugs, Kariri, Export TT, the FBIDC committee as well. We are working closely with those agencies so that we can get the training to move the business from one stage to another. So if the processor do decide that they want to export, that they would have some of the fundamental things already in place to make that possible.
The bill which gave life to the agreement was passed in the Senate and will hopefully be proclaimed soon, moving from policy to reality and opening new doors for Tobagonians. I'm Omadara Mills for Let's Talk Tobago.
This park is filled with history, so be sure to take note of the pieces that lay around the fort. For instance, this customs shipping scale was once used to weigh sugar, molasses and cocoa before those items were shipped to Europe. Now, measuring what you're selling makes perfect business sense. Fast forward to 2015 and that remains the driving principle behind successful companies. But going this route is not as intuitive as you think. Tobago recognizes this and is educating the owners of small and medium-sized businesses.
Marlene Stanislaus is a full-time entrepreneur who has been making products using crochet for over 20 years. But she says she has been underpricing her stock simply because she didn't understand the value of her products. She now knows how to calculate her costs effectively to price her items in a way in which she can make a profit, thanks to this seminar put on by the Division of Health and Social Services for entrepreneurs who received grants to kick back their businesses from the Realization of Economic Achievement or REACH program.
With this program today, I learned how to do my variable costs and how to do production costs, how to make my business run at a level where the customers aren't the ones making the price. I am the ones making the price, and it was so important for me because I used to normally just do my business and just sell, like, if I choose to make a price, I make a price.
Many small businesses use price to compete, but a few understand that reducing cost to attract customers has a host of implications for businesses. It's therefore crucial that rich beneficiaries like Marlene understand the chain effect.
The program was designed for a certain segment of business which deals particularly with costing and pricing. It's an area which most business people find a little challenging because there are certain formulas that you would use and we would use just a basic method, but the workshop was designed to show them how to incorporate all the costs.
Another local entrepreneur, Reagan Flanders of Hecker Oils, says the workshop was eye-opening, teaching him things he never knew. Reagan walked away from this seminar with the ability to create an accurate price structure that results in profits.
Don't get me wrong, I did my own books before, right? But I kind of get more angle of how to go into depth of certain things in terms of costing, in terms of breaking it down and being able to get the unit cost versus just averaging a unit cost based on what you think you spend, you know what I mean?
This is the first in a series of workshops that the Division of Health and Social Services plans to host for entrepreneurs this year. I'm Caroline Wallace for Let's Talk Tobago.
On your tour around Fort King George, don't forget to take a trip back in time at the Tobago Trust Museum. But before we actually take you inside, do you remember the bakes, cakes or sweets your granny used to make? Well, in Tobago, one woman has made a business of giving you those items just like your grandmother made them. They are such a hit, she needed to expand. Let's find out who she turned to for the necessary financing.
These hands are that of 64-year-old Gemma Parks, owner of Kairos Bakery in Canaan. Mrs. Parks has been baking an assortment of bakes, cakes and pastries for over 30 years, a tradition that's been in her family for a long time.
The day Flora happened, 1963, that's the day, the last day my grandmother and they were baking. When we came from school after the hurricane cooled down, when we came home, is all the dough on the ground. And with that, there's a passion inside of me for doing that, using my hands.
Although she continued baking over the years, Mrs. Parks actually started Kairos Bakery in 2011. That's after she took a few refresher courses in bread, cakes and pastry making. But in order to produce more baked goods in a shorter time, she needed money for more equipment and commercial ovens. So she went to the Business Development Unit, BDU, an entity run by the Division of Finance and Enterprise Development. There, she applied to its grant and loan programs and got funding.
BDU is always willing, whilst you meet their requirements, you are able to get your loan and they don't bully you.
And thanks to their help, Mrs. Parks is able to supply all 3 outlets of Penny Savers with her goods on a regular basis. But for her, it's not just about dollars and cents. Mrs. Parks, who's also a pastor, sees her business as a way of giving back to Tobago.
I see where I can do something to help myself and help others, because I see this business as a teaching school for young people.
The BDU understands the impact that small enterprises like Cairo's Bakery has in Tobago. That's why the unit has invested millions of dollars in over 900 small businesses on the island. It's a mission to strengthen the private sector and diversify Tobago's economy. For those wishing to access the BDU's services, they can be contacted at 639-4412, extension 3107. I'm Umadara Mills for Let's Talk Tobago.
We're taking another break, but do stick around for details of a survey that should put an end to our traffic headaches. Welcome back. This is Let's Talk Tobago, and today we're at Fort King George, and right now I'm in what used to be the officers' quarters but is now the Tobago Museum. Come see how our ancestors lived, or simply gaze into the past by looking at drawings, paintings and artifacts that date back centuries. Nothing here has any resemblance to a time and a place where we spend hours sitting in traffic trying to get to our next destination. Tobago's improved standard of living means more and more cars are added to our roads every year. Thankfully, there's a plan in place to ensure commuting does not become a nightmare.
Pretty soon, this congestion heading in and out of Scarborough should be no more. Why? Well, the Division of Infrastructure and Public Utilities is conducting its first Journey to Work survey that should provide solutions to this problem. It's envisioned that over 5,000 Tobagonians from both private businesses and the public sector will respond, generating data on commuting patterns which will help to plan highway improvements.
It's a survey that is used internationally to poll the population to find out what are their modes of transportation to work, how is congestion affecting them, and it also helps us to understand how to make better transportation planning decisions. So it will poll questions like, how do you travel to work?
Tobago traffic woes aren't Trinidad's, but each week new cars are added to the island's roads. This will inevitably put a strain on the existing network, so the architects of the survey are looking ahead, trying to foresee that future and implement changes that will ensure the problem never gets out of hand.
We are going to use the data that we collect from the survey to see which systems we're going to implement. So things that we may look into would be like synchronizing traffic lights, so that you can, once you get the green at Signal Hill, you can, by the time you get to Orange Hill, get the green light there.
The assembly is going to these lengths, but there's a real cost to traffic jams. A London-based consultancy, the Centre for Economics and Business Research, and a traffic data firm estimated that in 2013, the expenses from congestion added up to $200 billion in the British, French, German, and American economies. That figure is expected to rise to nearly $300 billion by 2030. Now, there are no figures on the impact on Tobago's economy, but it's a cost the THA is keen to avoid. Actually, it's hoped the Journey to Work survey will be done every 5 years. I'm Melissa Crosby for Let's Talk Tobago.
Ever wonder what this fort looked like generations ago? Well, this drawing by Frederick Maitland, the captain of the 60th Regiment in 1793, takes away the guesswork. And as you contemplate Tobago circa the 1800s, here are a couple of things we want you to also think about. How safe is your food? Was it handled properly at all stages? Where did the ingredients come from? These might seem trivial, but the answers could save lives and a hefty hospital bill.
These are known as pathogenic microorganisms, and they can cause severe illnesses. such as stomach pains, vomiting, diarrhea, fever, and even death.
And that's the reason the World Health Organization wants the world to think before they eat. So with the help of the Tobago Regional Health Authority and the Division of Health and Social Services, this campaign has started in Tobago, beginning with this summit.
A safe and adequate food supply is needed in order to combat the issue of chronic diseases and also in the area of nutritional deficiencies. Diabetes, cardiovascular disease, obesity are all linked to what we eat.
The WHO estimates that every year millions fall ill and many die as a result of eating unsafe food. To bring awareness to this, they adopted a resolution in 2000 to recognize food safety as an essential public health issue. They also found that unsafe food creates a vicious cycle of diseases and malnutrition. The effects on children in particular are usually severe and may be especially fatal, so Tobago isn't leaving them out of this campaign.
We need to have everyone understand the value of food safety and how it impacts positively on the growth, the physical growth, and the cognitive development of our students and children here in Tobago.
But globalization has made food safety more complex. For one, the food chain is longer, which means there are more opportunities for food contamination to take place. The good news is, the more the public knows and understands, the greater the chance of beating this problem, something those in attendance at the summit are all too aware of.
I've learned that, we need to make sure and prepare our food safely and buy food from reputable persons.
And in case you're wondering what you can do to ensure the food you eat is safe, here are some tips. Keep clean. Separate raw and cooked food. Cook food thoroughly. Keep food at safe temperatures and use safe water and raw material. This is the first in a series of summits on food safety that will be held here on this island. I am Keyshawn Wilson for Let's Talk Tobago.
An old calculator, a typewriter, and a sewing machine. Come see these and much more right here at Fort King George. These items might not be recognizable to some children, most of whom only know of touchscreen tablets and Google to solve their mathematical problems. It's the perfect example of the old replacing the new, but it's also about innovation, satisfying the same need using an improved method. Well, the same applies to culture, which is by no means static. Unfortunately, we haven't always kept up with trends, but that's about to change.
Pembroke's Salaka Feast, Blackrock's Boat Christening, Mariah's Old Time Wedding. These are staples of the Tobago Heritage Festival. But for some, these events offer nothing new. Each year is a repeat of the same. Heritage and cultural practitioners want to change this, and they are learning new ways to make the presentations fresh while preserving the essence of the heritage. It was done at the first Heritage Training Workshop put on by the Division of Community Development and Culture.
There is a way you can present your heritage to ensure that the authenticity remains, the tradition remains, but it's how you put it out there, how it is you present it, so that the people at a global level could understand what it is, can participate in it as it is, and that sort of thing.
But learning to be versatile and creative wasn't the only lesson taught. Other topics at the one-day session included training in proposal writing and management of public funding, so that groups can be up to date with the international criteria.
People need to understand what is the global standards, because the cultural and creative industry doesn't only speak to us, it speaks on a global level. How do we participate on the world stage? If we really want to talk industry, we have to speak world stage, we have to speak world standards therefore. So this is one of the main reasons. So we want to ensure that our people reach to a certain level where they can participate on that in that global space very easily.
Cultural groups can look out for other workshops for the rest of the year. It's hoped that they can apply what they learned to the upcoming 2015 Tobago Heritage Festival. Beyond that, the groups can use the new knowledge in other areas of their lives. I'm Omadara Mills for Let's Talk Tobago.
It's time to take another break, but on the other side, a look at Tobago's famous goat and crab races.
Hey, why don't you step into the Scarborough Library facility? It has all the knowledge of our land, people and heritage that you just won't find online. The Scarborough Library facility is now open. Tobago Library Services. Information inspires innovation.
Thanks for staying with us. This is Let's Talk Tobago. Today we're at Fort King George, the biggest of 5 remaining forts on this island. Be sure to look out for the Bell Tank, Barracks, the Lighthouse, the Powder Magazine and the condemned men's cells. Of course, there are also numerous cannons right here. Buku's Goat Race Festival is deeply rooted in Tobago's culture. It started in 1925 as a poor man's version of the elite horse racing sport. Now the event attracts thousands of local, regional and even international visitors who all want to see the unusual sport. This year, the organizers did not disappoint. Here are some highlights for those of you who weren't able to travel to the Sister Isle and take in all the action and excitement.
The racing for the A-class race, and this is a good race. Understand the bump comes up on the reason. Back on the nose, Davia Chambers from the white man clutch line, who seems to be the run. Clutch line pulls the bottle to the
That's the start of the 90th annual Buku Goat and Crab Race Festival in Tobago. It was a day with 14 other races like this one, which included veterans, those in it for the first time, and the highlight of the day, the office of the Chief Secretary's Champ of Champs. But it's not just about the goats. Crabs were also a hot item on the track, even though there were only 2 such races.
It was very nice, and my crab was very nice, and we won, so good.
And there was never a dull moment. Patrons also enjoyed entertainment from these local acts. Buku Sunset Dancers, the Scarborough RC Speechettes, and the Exquisite Dance Company.
Well, I love it. It's my first experience and it is awesome.
It's an incredible event. I've really enjoyed it. I'm particularly surprised by the professionalism and the competitiveness of the racing. And I live in London, not far from Ascot, where they have the big horse racing event, Royal Ascot, and it's on a par with Ascot, this event. It's the Ascot of the Caribbean.
A day at the races in Buku has evolved, something the villagers and the organizers are proud of.
Goat racing belongs to Tobago, and the THA has provided us with an adequate facility. This is us as Tobago children, or Buku children in particular, to say, listen, we have a skill, a talent, and so it can be exploited not only to earn revenue for the goat owners and so on, but to earn revenue to Tobago.
This year's festival is a collaborative effort of the villagers, sponsors from private businesses, and the Tobago House of Assembly. I'm Omadara Mills for Let's Talk Tobago.
Lighthouses are a guide to sailors that land is near and warn them they're approaching rocks, reefs, and shallow waters which must be navigated with caution. But lighthouses are also comforting. They signal that calm waters of a welcoming harbor are close at hand, or symbolically, as a beacon that will always guide you back home safely. And speaking of home, one of our very own Cocoa Reef Resort walked away with what's dubbed the Oscars of the global travel and tourism industry. Here's what set that hotel apart from others.
The smiling faces and the exemplary service here gave Cocoa Reef Tobago the edge over its competitors for the World Travel Awards leading Caribbean hotel title for 11 years in a row.
To win that award, it's not just the physical plant that matters, but it is how our guests perceive their vacation, and most importantly, how they're treated by everyone who works at Cocoa Reef.
Recognition by the WTA is seen as the highest accolade in the tourism sector. Added to this, the hotel was also named Tobago's leading resort. That's a plus, not only for Cocoa Reef but for this island's tourism.
It gives the island publicity, and when people read about the award, they read mostly about Tobago and the fact that Cocoa Reef is part of the Tobago tourism product.
Part of Cocoa Reef's secret is its commitment to staying current. That they have stayed true to this in the most trying of times is even more commendable. Cocoa Reef stayed the course. In fact, at the moment they are working on the lobby. It's their way of looking ahead and hopefully winning the coveted award for the 12th year. I'm Caroline Wallace for Let's Talk Tobago.
Remember those games of I Spy? What about pretending to be a British or French soldier keeping watch at the fort? Well, it doesn't have to be just a memory. What are you waiting for? Get out your binoculars and search for popular landmarks in Scarborough, Bacalet, or as far east or west as you can spy. Now, Easter in Tobago is a time of frolicking and merriment. Many come to this island to fete and party, but not everyone spends the long weekend that way. The tone of one festival in Tobago is actually quite the opposite.
It was a night to celebrate in song and dance. As the island hosted the 32nd annual Sunfest under the theme Celebrating Jesus.
It is by nature to remind the people about the coming of Jesus Christ.
And that they did. And those who feel lost are in need of answers.
And Mama says, son, every man got to work out his own salvation. And she says, son, so when it comes to heaven, I cannot give God no recommendation. And she says, son, every man got to work out his own salvation. Because when it comes to heaven, no one cannot give God no recommendation.
Sunfest is sponsored in part by the Division of Community Development and Culture and was held over 3 nights. I'm Melissa Crosby for Let's Talk Tobago.
And it's time to have your say, the segment of our program where we hear from you, our viewers. The Tobago House of Assembly plans to purchase 50 new Brazilian-made buses for the traveling public. The fleet will seat 28, 36 and 50 passengers, and several of these buses will cater for persons with disabilities, while some will also service the tourism sector. The idea is to find solutions to the public transportation inefficiencies. So today we're asking, how do you feel about the proposal to purchase buses to address our transportation woes? This is what you said.
Well, that is excellent because the bus service is very terrible.
I think that's a good idea, but how long may we take?
Buying it is one, yes, it's no problem. But managing it is the other, and keeping them in good working condition.
Very proud to have the buses. We need the transport, but we're not getting the transport as often.
I do against them buying the buses, but buy proper buses.
I'm a pensioner and I have my bus pass, and I cannot get bus. So I would be happy for that if we get the buses.
I'll be glad.
And that's how we bring this week's edition of Let's Talk Tobago to a close. Remember, you can send us your comments or queries on anything you've seen in this program to information@tha.gov.tt, or you can even visit us at www.tha.gov.tt. Like us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Davia Chambers, and on behalf of all of us at the Department of Information, have a safe and enjoyable week. As we go, we want to leave you with the music of Jennifer Hudson, who will be performing at this year's Tobago Jazz Experience.